Okay, today we're going to be looking at making our peace flags. I'm going to be using some watercolors, water paintbrush or planning sheet, a Sharpie, and a white oil pastel. And the first thing I always want to start with is my plan. So I have my yellow planning paper. This is the cloth I'm using, and you'll notice it's a little bit different size than my paper. So the easiest thing for me to do is just to take it on here and line it up. I can fold it over with the edges, so I know where that cloth's going to be. Set that out of the way, and over here I can talk about my peace flag that I'm going to be doing. I've thought about this a little bit, and I was thinking about our different peace site activities, and which my favorite ones are, and acts of service happens to be my favorite one. So the way that I'm going to represent that is I'm going to use hands that are helping one another. And I am drawing with Sharpie because I'm going to be using this as my guide in a few minutes. My other hand goes this way. Okay. And we're not looking for these to be perfect since this is your rough draft. And it is a symbol, right? So for me, it's helping hands kind of in a circle like that. And then I can do up here, let's see, I can do acts of service, because that's what I like to do. You don't have to use words. You could just use the symbol by itself. And of course, we like to do this all over the world. So I'll kind of do a little bit of a globe on here. It doesn't have to look exactly like the earth, right? And I like to do this peacefully, so I'm also going to include that olive branch in there. We talked about the olive branch being a symbol of peace. And remember, I have to stay inside these borders because that's where my paper is going to be. So there's my design. Then what I can do is take my cloth, and you'll see when I put it on top, I can see through here, and my white oil pastel. And I'm going to start with the symbols first. And you notice you have to hold it down on both sides because it's a little stretchy since it's cloth. And I want to press firmly, but I don't want to break my oil pastel. So it's that nice in-between sweet spot. And you might have to change directions that you pull and push the oil pastel. You notice it doesn't always like to go the same direction I want it to. It starts bunching up a little bit. So then I have to adjust how I'm drawing something. And I'm going to do my globe on here on that nice circle. And then I had trouble drawing my hand upside down last time. So I'm going to flip it around this way this time. And I'll be able to fix that a little bit more, because I can understand how hands go one direction, but the other direction's a little trickier. There we go. Now it looks a lot more like that other hand that I had on the other side. Back around, make sure they're staying mostly lined up, and then add in my globe. And I'm remembering, I kind of even stretch it a little bit this way with my fingers when I put it down, so that I can make sure it sort of stays where I want it to. I'm going to add those olive branches on here again. And that was pretty easy to draw last time, so I can just move this out of my way if I want to see my paper better now. I'm pretty confident in my drawing skills for that olive branch. So that paper provided a distraction when it was there. I can just move it, and that way I don't have a distraction when I'm doing that part. And then the acts of service, it was kind of tight last time, and drawing with a fatter crayon is going to be trickier, so I think this time I'm just going to write the word service. And as artists, we have to make that adjustment sometimes to our artwork. Once we start doing things, we're like, oh, it didn't line up quite the same, or the medium that I'm using changes how it comes out on the other end. And being real close to the edge of this cloth does make it a lot more difficult to hold it still. I'm gonna go right to the edge. There we go. So now I have my acts of service. The next thing we want to do is get a white sheet of paper to put underneath. And this will keep it from getting all over our desk and running everywhere when we start adding our watercolors. I'm going to spritz it just a little bit where I want the colors to kind of run together. which is just at the top and just at the bottom. That'll help pre-wet our cloth a little bit. You can also just take plain water and wet that cloth down if you would like that. You know, it's harder to see on the camera. And then wet my material down, or my cloth down here. This is 100% cotton, so it should take the water very easily. Then I want to dry off my brush before I start grabbing some of my watercolors. And I'm not going to add any water to my watercolors. I'm just going to have the watercolors straight on top of here. I want to get kind of a rainbow type effect. So when it's already wet, it'll bleed together. If I go right up to the edge of my hand, you'll notice where I was using my oil pastel, it's not changing colors, right? It's because the oil in the oil pastels resists the watercolor that's in there. And I could even go around that hand if I wanted to. A little bit there. And then down here I had my olive leaf, so I'll do that more of a green. Just kind of dab it all over on there. Anytime I switch colors, I am rinsing my brush. I don't want to mix them in my paint tray. I only want them to mix on my cloth. If I want them to mix a little bit more, I can overlap just a little bit on here like that. Okay, and then I have my globe. Which I can paint on here. Now remember, this area of my my cloth I did not wet first, and you can see how it stays a little darker and a little bit more where you want it to in those spaces. So if you want purposeful colors on things, then you would not get those spaces wet so that they don't bleed. And I'm going right up to the lines where my hands are. There we go. And then if I want to make my hands kind of hand colored, I'll start with yellow, and then I'll add a little bit of orange and a smidge of green to get more of a tan color. I'm going right up to the edges and over those oil pastels again, because it's just going to push the paint off. It's okay if they mix a little bit. That's kind of the point of this. We want a nice flowy, wavy flag sensation. Out here. Add a little bit of water to get that to spread. Then I'm going to grab a pinch of orange. And I get my brush really wet, and then I dip it in the brown, or the orange. I keep saying brown. We're gonna work on making brown. And my orange looks a little brownish right now. I suspect somebody got it a little dirty. Like this. And remember, my hands and my arms wrap all the way around. And then if I want them to be a little bit of brown, what I do is I take some water, I put it in my tray over here with just some water and just a touch, a little dash of green. Because when we add green to our orange, it'll end up blending and making it just a little bit more of a brown shade. A little bit more hand colored. Add some shadows in there. There we go. And this is hard to see now, but when it dries, it'll be beautifully colored in like this, and we'll hang them from the ceilings for everyone to see.